Umbraco 14 is now out, and in my opinion, this is the most controversial Umbraco release in years. Now, the reason for this is because there's been a big change in how we build things in the back end. And if you want to learn more about that, then look in the description because I've recorded a video all about it. However, today we're talking upgrades. So because there's been a massive shift in architecture and a bunch of things have been deprecated, then for some folks, this upgrade could be a nightmare. For others, though, it might be really simple. So what I'm going to do in this video is give you a real-time update of how I upgraded my websites. Now, just in terms of V14, you can see here that it's a standard term support. So if you just want to upgrade to the long-term supported versions of Umbraco, you can give this one a skip. However, the real spicy topic that I want to get to today is this backend change a good idea? And how will it impact you building websites moving forward with Umbraco? Now, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my unfiltered thoughts about this upgrade. So stick around because this is going to be interesting. Now, before we get to the good stuff, do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I've also created a book on Umbraco, so buy that if you want to support this channel and learn more about Umbraco. And now let's look at how we can upgrade our sites to V14. In this section, I'm going to share with you my real-time progress of updating my site from V13 to V14. Now, I'll hold my hands up. I did actually upgrade my website before I recorded this video. So I know the challenges that I'm going to bump into, which is why it's going to take me way less time in this walkthrough. And for fun fact, it took me 3 or 4 hours because of a very annoying bug the first time round. And I'll show you how to prevent that issue if it occurs for you. So I've jumped us over to Visual Studio, and the first place to start is NuGet. So in order to load the NuGet Explorer, right click on your solution and click on this Manage NuGet Packages for Solution. And it's important that you pick the solution object rather than doing it on a per project basis. Now from here, there's two things. And the first bit we want to do is go to this Updates tab. Now from here, you can see we've got a bunch of different things that we want to upgrade. Specifically, we've got some Umbraco things from 13 to 14. We've also got some just general .NET dependencies that we also need to upgrade. So the easiest way to upgrade everything is to click on this Select All Packages and then click on Update. Now, the reason why I recommend that you favor this bulk update button is because Visual Studio should hopefully be able to manage the update order for you. Because if you try and update your packages manually, you'll likely bump into some sort of dependency issue, and you're going to have to try and manually figure out the order of the packages to update, where that big button will do everything for you automatically. Now, once we do this, hopefully you can see that everything is upgraded. Now, my next upgrade tip is around making sure you're not using deprecated packages. So you can see in my installed tab, I've got this yellow warning triangle. So this means that I've got some deprecated packages. So if I scroll down, you can see that this Microsoft ASP.NET Core MVC abstraction, that's now been deprecated, and so is this one. So what I want to do is right click on my projects, click on uninstall, then do the same for the other package, and job's a good one. Now, what I want to do typically after upgrading my packages is that if I go through dependencies and packages for each one of my class libraries, you can see that sometimes you've got some legacy stuff here. So if I look at this packages, we can see we've got this Microsoft ASP.NET 5.30. This is very out of date now. Let's just remove that. If I go to my website, this looks okay. If I go to my core class library, you can see we've got an issue here. So let's quickly remove that. And then if I look at my last models project, we can see that this is okay. Now, aside from this, if I go back to my NuGet, the other thing that I want to remove now, you can see here, I've got some warnings. You can see here, I've got this ASP.NET Core MVC abstractions and this caching thing. So if I click on this, click on all projects, and then let's do uninstall. There's obviously an issue and it's deprecated. And then if I click on this other one, let's uninstall this as well because it's also been deprecated. Cool. So package management is the first step, and usually it's the easiest. Now, the second step is fixing the breaking changes. And because V14 has a brand new backend, potentially expect to have a lot of pain here. So in case you weren't aware, you can no longer use C# in the backend. You can no longer use macros in rich text editor. A few of the property types have now been deprecated. So when you compile your site at this step, expect a lot of things to break. So the only thing left to do now is click on build and see how painful this is going to be. Now you can see on this site, I've got 7 different errors. And the first one we need to fix is a deprecated issue of this Umbraco endpoint builder context does not contain a definition for use installer endpoints. Now, this installer endpoints was something that used to happen within Umbraco v13. So if I go to my program.cs, what we can see is that down here within our use Umbraco with endpoints, this has got a red squiggly line. So we can delete this now because it's no longer needed. With that fixed, let's go back to our error list. You can see my next error here is content app could not be found. Now, this is a bit frustrating for me, and I'll cover the reason why in a bit. But basically, in the olden days of Umbraco, from V8, I believe, to V13, you could customize the backend using C#, and a content app was a way to extend the backend so you could have a different view when you're creating pages in the editor. Now, my content app actually displayed the end URL, super handy. However, as you can see, this support has now gone. So my only option is to completely recreate this backend extension using the new mechanisms. So my only option now is to comment out this and lose the functionality for the time being. Now, if I look at the next one, you can see that I've got another error. So access rule cannot be found. Now, if I go here, you can see that this dashboards, which again is another backend thing in Umbraco via C#. This has now disappeared. This access rule thing has now disappeared. This iDashboard thing has disappeared. But again, this custom backend dashboard that I created in .NET, this no longer works. So my only option is to leave this feature and comment it out. So if I click build again, if we look in our error list, you can see I've still got this Umbraco endpoint builder context. I believe this is just a bug with my code, but actually I just want to delete all of this. The next issue in this list, and the last one by the looks of it, is again namespace content apps does not exist. So within my iComposer, where I was registering this content app, I need to delete this bit of code, and then I need to delete this reference. So with that using gone, if I now run my site, hopefully it should build and I don't get any build errors, and we'll be on to step 3 of the upgrade. Now, if you are lucky, step 3 should just be a case of running your site and running the upgrade wizard. However, in my example, my site wouldn't load whatsoever, but a very annoying bug. Now, this bug took me about 3 hours to figure out. There's no information on Stack Overflow. I had to figure it out myself. Now, hopefully you won't have this bug. I'll cover what it is just in case it helps a few people out there. Now, I know that when I run this, what should happen now is that my site is going to throw this exception. So the exception that was thrown was of type system execution engine exception. There's an issue with the execution engine. Now, if I look at the file throwing it, I noticed it was in the globalization mode. And if I look within here, you can see that I also noticed we had these load app local ICU, and we also had some other things around load ICU. Now, to try and fix this issue, I basically reverted everything in my program.cs, unloaded all my event handlers, I basically unloaded all my class libraries, and eventually I thought I'd look within my CS proj file. So within my CS proj file, basically I found this ICU reference. You can see here we've got ICU, we've got ICU. So to fix this issue, I basically deleted this line from my CS proj, click save, and then if I go back into my solution, close it just to be sure, reopen it, click debug, and our site should load. Now, granted, that just took me about 2 to 3 minutes. In the real world, that was about 3 hours of debugging. However, if you find that issue, you're not going to find anything useful on Stack Overflow or online. So basically go to your CS proj, delete it. Now, hopefully what should happen now is we see website under maintenance. And what I want to do is go to my backend, so /Umbraco. I now need to log in. And then after logging in, you can see we've got the upgrading Umbraco wizard. You can see here that we've got a v14 version of Umbraco. We need to upgrade our database. So clicking on continue, this is going to upgrade the database. And then if all goes well, we should be logged into the CMS. Log in again, and then off we go. Ta-da! So that covered the technical steps that you need to follow in order to upgrade your site to v14. Now, within the remainder of the video, I want to cover the more complicated question. Should you upgrade your site to v14? Right, let's get straight to the point. So this change in architecture really does fundamentally affect how you build websites with Umbraco. Now, if you're using Umbraco to build websites, you're not really customizing it too much, and you're not using any of the deprecated data types, you're not using macros within the rich text editor, and you haven't created any custom backend extensions, then this upgrade, it's no sweat, and in the future, things aren't probably going to impact you too much. However, if you're like me, and one of the main reasons why you pick Umbraco for a project is because you can customize the backend extensively using .NET or Angular, then this update really could screw you over. Because things have fundamentally changed, this could be a massive amount of work. So in order for me to be as objective as possible and to clearly communicate my ideas, I'm going to split this video into 3 personas. So the first persona is as a .NET developer that works with Umbraco. The second is someone who's severely impacted by these breaking changes in v14. And the third one is if I was the product owner or the lead architect that worked at Umbraco. Now, in case you weren't aware, I have a website called johndjones.com. It's got about 1,000 different articles on how you can do stuff with CMS dev productivity. Now, this site has been hosted on Umbraco for a number of years, and if I'm honest, it's just a blog website. It hasn't really changed. Now, just in terms of a development perspective, there's been a lot of effort for me just to keep my website updated to Umbraco. So it started off in Umbraco 7, and because I wanted to do code and model first, I used this extension called USite Builder. This basically became obsolete in Umbraco v8, where I had to basically spend a week refactoring things. Now, on top of that, in v8 we had components and composers. We also had to refactor all the event handling. So next up, we had the move to Umbraco 9. So this went from .NET Framework to .NET Core, and this was a big jump. So this took me about 2 weeks of refactoring just to get my site bumped to v9. Now, since v10 to v14, there hasn't been any major breaking changes. There's been a few little niggles with bumping .NET to different versions, and Microsoft did decide to get rid of startup.cs, so we had to spend a little bit of time refactoring things here. However, the point of all of this is that it's taken me a lot of time and effort over the past few years to keep my website purely on .NET. Now, to be honest, the number one reason why I've gone through all of this upgrade pain is 1, to create content on YouTube, 2, because I do love Umbraco and I wanted to run my website in it, and 3, I also like C#, so I wanted to run my website on something which was completely .NET. Now, because v14 is changing the way that I can work with the Umbraco backend, I do have to rethink things, because now I can no longer just use .NET to customize the backend. So speaking purely as a .NET developer, it's probably best for me to stay on v13, not worry about v14, because I can customize the backend. I'm not going to have to reformat and refactor any of my content, and I can build things the way I want. Now, obviously, this isn't sustainable long term, and in the future, I may need to replatform. However, sticking at v13 is going to give you the best flexibility to use .NET to customize your website. Right, things are getting serious now because I've changed my t-shirt. So this represents I'm a different persona. So for some people out there, they might be on Umbraco 7, 8, 9 or 10. They could be extending the backend a lot using .NET or Angular. They could be using some of these deprecated data types. they could be using macros in rich text editor. And when you try to upgrade, this could basically be a re-platform because this could be a lot of effort. Now, I think it would be fair in this instance if Umbraco no longer lets you just use .NET to build a CMS. It is valid to think, should we be moving to headless? Because if we look at Umbraco 12, 13, 14 and the future releases, we can see that they're moving towards a headless architecture. Now, for me personally, if I was being forced into a re-platform and I was considering headless, and now JavaScript is the tool that I want to use, then I'd have to question, is Umbraco the right solution for my website? Now, going back to when I was working in an agency, if a prospect came to me and said, we want to do headless, then if they had a lot of money, it would probably be a Contentful or a content stack. If they didn't have the same budget, maybe it would be a Storyblock, a Strapi, a Sanity. And if I'm honest, Umbraco didn't really go into that conversation. So the sad news is for people who have used .NET to customize the backend, or for potentially people who haven't updated Umbraco for a while, then V14 is going to be a mass amount of work for some people. Now, as I mentioned, this probably is a good time to consider re-platforming because the effort just to update might be the same as completely rewriting from scratch. And because the industry trend seems to be towards headless, you may want to consider moving towards a headless CMS. As I just mentioned, Umbraco does have some great headless CMS capabilities. However, you might want to think about the bigger picture here as well. So we're on to the third persona, my third t-shirt of the video. You better like this because my wife's probably going to kill me the amount of washing that she has to do just from this video alone. Right, so in this persona, let's imagine me personally working at Umbraco and it was my responsibility to improve the CMS over time. Now, one of the main aims for any company is to increase adoption. So the number one thing I'd say is that if you're building a CMS and it's just .NET, you're severely limiting the amount of people who are going to use your CMS. Now, like at Olympit, if you look at Stack Overflow, we can see that .NET isn't the most used language in the world. If you look over time, it's not really gaining in adoption. It's not really losing anything. However, having a CMS which forces people to learn .NET means that you're not going to have as wider adoption as possible. So the second thing is that, let's be honest, the industry is moving towards headless. And if I had a CMS that didn't support headless, then I'm just going to miss out on a bunch of people who might use my CMS. So a big part of my future roadmap would be to move towards headless. And this is the reason why if I was the chief product owner or the lead architect over Umbraco, I'd 100% be building in these features like the content delivery API, the management API, these new front-end SDKs, as well as using these things as the gateway for how we interact with the CMS, because this is going to make us future-proof. Now, number 3 is maintainability. Now, Umbraco is an amazing CMS, and I hope it's here in another 20, 30 years' time. And how many times have you seen some software vendor die because they couldn't keep up with the times? Now, if I was building CMS, we all know that monoliths just don't work. And it means it's going to be very clunky, it's going to be very slow for us to release change. Now, if I was going to re-architect the backend, I would 100% use components. So I'd break everything down, I'd create a UI library, so that is definitely something I would do. Now, in terms of technology, we don't know what's going to be the best thing in 10 years' time. So to give me some future proof, I would probably pick web components for my UI library because that makes sense. So I'm back to my grey t-shirt to wrap things up. So speaking just as a .NET dev, this release is a little bit frustrating because I've spent so much time and effort over the last 2 or 3 years keeping my website on .NET. I've now reached a point where if I wanted to do pure .NET, I'd have to change CMSs. So really, I could have just swapped to headless to a different CMS ages ago and saved myself a bunch of effort. Now, Umbraco is still an amazing CMS, and if I use .NET, my advice is to just stick on V13 and live on that as long as possible. It's going to be around for a good couple of years, and hopefully in the future, there'll be some better .NET support in Umbraco. Now, for V14, some people out there, this is going to be a mass amount of change, and if you're in that situation, then now's a good time to think about headless. Because you can't use .NET to customize the backend so much, it kind of makes sense to think about headless and start going API first. So I guess the final point to consider is just around the future of Umbraco. Now, sadly, yes, life is moving away from .NET, and we all know that life is moving towards headless. So V14 is a baller release for Umbraco, in my opinion, because we need things like a management API if we're going to build headless. And if we need to use JavaScript, then yes, it makes perfect sense to use JavaScript to customize the backend as well. And the great thing is that you can still customize the backend. So even though this release is a move away from .NET and a little bit of a move towards JavaScript, which I'm sure a lot of people won't like, I think long term, this is a very positive step for the CMS, although it does frustrate me a little bit as a .NET developer, but I do get the long term point of view, and I do think this is a great move forward. So I guess we've reached the point in the video where I need to remind you that I have written a book about Umbraco. The link to it is in the description below. It's only 15 bucks. And if you want to support this channel and learn about Umbraco, that is a great choice. Now, let me know in the comments below your thoughts about this release, because I do think it's going to be pretty polarizing depending on where you are in those personas. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to learn more about Umbraco 14. In the upcoming weeks, expect a video about the management API, potentially how to build backend extensions in Umbraco using these new frameworks. There's a lot of good stuff coming up on this channel. Now, aside from that, on the screen, there's a link to the feature tour video of Umbraco 14 that I recorded last week. So check that out if you haven't already. Otherwise, have an amazing weekend. And until next Sunday, happy coding.